You're listening to the TV Obsessive channel, presented by TVObsessive.com.
Hello, welcome back to episode 18 of the TV Obsessive podcast. My name is Ryan Kirksey, a writer and contributor for the site, the TVObsessive.com. I am joined by Cameron Crane, executive editor for the site. And my only question for you today is, what in the world have you gotten me into with this show, Cameron?
Well, we'll talk about it more. We'll talk about it more later. I'm very curious. So yeah, for everyone listening, we've been going back and forth picking our favorite episodes of television or standout episodes or building Mount Rushmore, so we want to put it that way. And I knew that Ryan had not previously watched Twin Peaks, and I chose Twin Peaks, the third episode of Twin Peaks, which again, I went on a rant about this last time. I always want to say it's episode 2 because it was originally titled that way. The season 1, episode 3, and we can mention the German title,
Yeah,
the designer of the skill to catch a killer. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing your thoughts about Twin Peaks here on the other side. And this show is obviously you're aware of the status of the show as like a cult phenomenon. So
yeah, and I have some things as we get to it that I'll mention that I thought as I was watching that was, oh, that's where this is from, or
really?
I've seen this before. I guess this is where it started. Whatever. Yeah, I got some of that to toss in.
Cool. Yeah. So we'll hold off on that. I mean, look, I'll just say right now, I'm curious in part because it's like, yeah, okay, you asked, what have I gotten you into? Are you going to become one of us? Or not? Like, it's fine if the answer is no. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I am, for those who are unaware, I'm a massive Twin Peaks fan. I've written a number of things on the show. I did a podcast while the Twin Peaks of Return was airing.
Okay.
Actually, if you want to look that up, it's called Drink Full and Ascend. It's still out there. But I know people, or I'm aware of people who are like bigger fans than me, who's like decorating their house with a chevron floor. Like, I don't know. So I don't know. I mean, we're fans in different ways, perhaps.
Yes. Well, I'm actually really looking forward to talking about it, and once again, grateful to you for picking the third episode and not the 23rd episode, so that I could at least have some context around what I'm watching here.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could have thrown you one. And see, part of the problem though, Ryan, is I could have thrown you one where you've just been like, what is going on? And part of the problem would have been you wouldn't have been able to parse to what degree that was the appropriate reaction for someone who'd seen everything up to that. You know what I mean? Like, so anyhow, as always, in the first part of the pod here, we'll talk through some recent things going on in the news, what we're watching, and things like that. So it's October 17th as we record here today. What's caught your eye this week, Ryan?
Yeah, a couple of things we should mention. A couple of passings we've had this week. First of all, a day or two ago, Suzanne Summers of Three's Company fame and TGIF fame of ABC of 30 years ago is passed away this week.
Yeah.
I forgot when I was reading some stories about her, about how much of a trailblazer she was in this sort of contract dispute with Three's Company. Do you know this story?
Oh, vaguely, because they had a falling out and they replaced her ultimately.
They replaced her after she wanted to raise to sort of after that show
Yeah.
became so popular that she wanted sort of John Ritter level money. And they kept saying, no, 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 we'll give you a small raise. So she said, fine, I'm going to leave. She ended up doing, I think, a season where she recorded small parts when the rest of the cast wasn't around. And then they just replaced her and sort of lost that role. Yeah.
Did you watch Three's Company back in the day?
I've seen episodes here and there, but not the
It
whole
was
thing.
one of those things. I feel like when I was a kid, it was just on all the time. And I think back on it, I haven't revisited it, and part of me wants to revisit it at some point because I find myself asking myself weird questions like, was this show progressive?
Yeah.
Or was it reactionary?
Yeah.
Is it because it's like you've got a gay character. No, wait, not a gay character. He's pretending to be gay.
Pretending, yeah.
So that he can live as a roommate with two women. And so is that progressive or like, and part of me wants to talk to like an 18-year-old about this. You know what I mean?
Right.
Weird show. But yeah, they replaced Suzanne Summers, and I mean, it actually kind of worked okay. Now I have mixed feelings about that, but yeah, she was quite an icon,
Yes.
back in the
Oh,
'80s.
yes.
And didn't
I
she?
never bought a Thigh Master or anything.
I was just
I
mentioning the Thigh
presume you did.
Master. I was mentioning she's in the Thigh Master.
Yeah.
We'll have a little through line here. We'll talk about uh, home exercise equipment a little bit.
Oh, yes, that's right. Oh, man.
We'll tie that in with Twin Peaks, and also tie into Twin Peaks. Piper Laurie passed away just the other day. Of course, she is Catherine Martell in Twin Peaks, but long and storied career. She was in Carrie and any number of other things. And I think she was 91.
Yeah, and I was really glad to actually be watching something that she was in when this news came out. It allowed me a chance to go revisit all that she had done. I had just was shocked that I had forgotten everything that she's done, and a career over what 6 decades, 7 decades almost.
Oh yeah, just amazingly
Yeah,
long career. Like she was famous before I was born.
yeah,
You know, and so yeah, we'll talk about Catherine a bit when we get to Twin Peaks. I'm a bit of a Catherine fan. I don't know, man. I just love Twin Peaks. We'll hold off about that a bit. What else we got here? Unfortunately, shortly after we recorded last week, news came out that the AMPTP had broken off talks with SAG-AFTRA. They've been meeting for multiple days in a row, and nothing's happened since then that I'm aware of. So no news
yeah.
is bad
It just
news on this
it
front.
looks like there's been no news since they broke that off. No, we're going to restart it. No, I mean, just forget the no news is good news thing. I mean, there's been nothing.
No, I
That's
said
come
no news
since
is
they broke
bad
off.
news.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
With
right.
regard to this in particular, no news is bad news because
Yeah,
the last news we got was they walked away from the bargaining table.
that's right.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have no inside information. It seems like maybe the sticking point has to do with some of the stuff about how they want to scan background actors and
Yeah,
things like that. Um, if that is the big sticking point, personally, I would say stick to your guns, SAG-AFTRA, because I mean, I
yeah,
think that's important that they're to not allow them to, like scan background actors and use AI, whatever. I mean, you'd be pulling the rug right out from those people who are scraping by as extras and things like
yeah.
that normally.
Exactly. I mean, as we've talked about ad nauseum, these are the people that they're fighting for, right? They're not fighting for, George Clooney and Tom Cruise. They're fighting for the people that are trying to make a living doing this. And if you're removing that opportunity by saying we can put you in something in one scene, scan you, and use you days later without you being here, yeah, that's just removing all plausible
Yeah,
reality of people doing this for a career.
indeed. Speaking of extras, did you ever watch that HBO show with Ricky Gervais, Extras?
No, I've never seen it.
I remember it being pretty funny.
Okay.
At one point, David Bowie sings a song making fun of Ricky Gervais. That was a while ago. That was a pretty funny show. Um, Similar thing. I mean, I don't know how similar it is. We don't know what's going on with the curse, but I'm excited.
Yeah, you and I have been talking offline about this show. This may have jumped to the top of my list of most anticipated things coming up in the next few months. This Nathan Fielder, Emma Stone show coming up on Showtime / Paramount on in early November. It doesn't look like the rehearsal. Doesn't look like Nathan Fielder's first show. This looks like some sort of satire, dark comedy around the idea of reality television.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I think that was one of the first things that we noted about it was that they were saying it's a scripted series. Everything
Mm-hmm.
looks like a scripted series. They've released a full trailer now. It's a couple minutes long. People want to go and watch it. Um, yeah, I think it's created by Nathan Fielder and Benny Safdie, and
Yes.
then yeah, also starring Emma Stone. And I don't know, it looks really good. I'm excited. I
It,
think I think
it,
I'm going to write on it.
yeah, it looks fantastic. I mean, the element of creepiness to it, element of I guess satire. It just there's a lot of cool elements to this thing.
Yeah, and it's nice to see even just in the trailer Nathan Fielder acting in a semi-dramatic role,
Mm-hmm.
um, as opposed to being just Nathan Fielder. I mean, of course, he's always acting in the
Yeah,
rehearsal and in Nathan
yeah,
for You, but he was always acting as this version of himself, kind of thing. And I guess he still is sort of here from what we've seen. But
to me, I mean, in what we get 2 minutes of him in a trailer, his acting in that role looks incredibly impressive. What little bit we see of it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Yeah.
More Drew Barrymore fallout.
Yeah, this is the story that won't die. You know, of course, she did restart her show this past week. Apparently with new writers after they left and want to know part of it. She went on and did not say one word about the controversy and just wants to, I guess, close that book, put it behind her. Of course, everyone picks up on that, and then subsequently is replaced by, you know, our joint hero LeVar Burton in the National Book Awards, right?
Which, I mean, obviously,
yeah,
he's the better choice anyway.
That's right.
Who's the better choice, the kid from Poltergeist or the guy who hosted Reading Rainbow? Come on.
Yeah, that's right.
What are you doing?
Yeah, gotta be LeVar Burton, but she was basically kicked out of that role because of what she had done.
Yeah, I think that happened a while ago, but they didn't reverse it, you know. Mm-hmm. So fair enough. Yeah, so I mean, I think that about covers it in terms of the news. A little bit of a light week.
Yeah.
I'm talking about what we've been watching a little bit. I have a couple of things. How are you feeling about Loki here?
Speaking of light weeks, yeah, just not much else on my plate. We know we have some things coming up in November, like Fargo, like The Curse. But yeah, just sort of biding time, catching up on old horror movies and watching Loki. That's kind of my October right now.
I mean, fair enough.
Yeah.
You know, it's October. I don't know if either of us have the time. I see multiple people who are like, it's October, I'm going to watch a horror movie every day.
Exactly.
That sounds cool for you.
Yes. We introduced our son to Friday the 13th for the first time last week, so we felt it appropriate. But no, just Loki episode 2. My thoughts are on the site. A little bit of a down episode compared to 1, but still some optimistic things there in terms of the roles and the portrayals and where they could go. So, but again, this whole thing with Marvel TV being in a state of upheaval, they've only got 4 episodes to make it right. So we'll see if it happens.
Yeah, it's only 6 again. Yeah, well, so I've got a couple of things. One, Mevy to report. I watched Moonlighting.
Oh, good. I was hoping you would talk about Moonlighting.
I did not watch all of Moonlighting, obviously. I mean, I guess it would have theoretically been possible in the past week. Yeah. I watched the first 2 episodes. First episode is an hour and a half long.
Oh, wow.
It's like a movie.
Speaking basically. Of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, I mean, I think this just used to be a little bit more common.
It must have been, yeah.
And then the second episode is, a case of the week, and you get the feeling pretty clearly that it's going to be a case of the week type show. They're running a in PI, investigation agency or whatever. I mean, some of the ins and outs of how the plot moves forward aren't exactly plausible, but that's fine. Like it's not the kind of show where you should be caught up on that at all. It flows, let it happen, be blown away by the acting performances from Sybil Shepherd and a young Bruce Willis and their repartee. Yeah. And I mean, I tell you, I watched the first episode and I had that kind of experience, when sometimes you finish an episode of TV or a movie or something, and you just feel like exhilarated.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was just like hyped, like that was awesome.
So a lot of the romantic tension in the first 2 episodes, or is that still to come?
Oh, I mean they've got that kind of thing going from the beginning in a way. But I will say this. So then I watched episode 2, and it was like, well, that was okay.
Okay.
But so I mean, it's but this is how it goes, right? They put it out there for the pilot. They're establishing everything, and the plot's really, really compelling.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be case of the week. You know what I mean? So, well, I'm curious to see how I feel about it as I keep going, and because I don't expect every episode to be great,
right?
You know, particularly when it's a show from the mid '80s. This is how TV works. They're pumping out episodes, right. And some of them are probably going to be a dud.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think I am curious to hear your thoughts as you go forward. If you feel like it's worth a binge.
No. So the other thing that's hitting on a bit of nostalgia. So I mentioned to you before Pablo Torre's podcast slash show. I've always done it on YouTube where it feels like more like I'm watching TV.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
have you checked this out at all? Pablo
I've
Torre
seen
finds out.
I've seen it a couple times just based on things you and I've looked at for the pod. But yeah, I mean it's wildly entertaining.
I enjoy it, but I mean, it's I don't know. It's hard to keep up. He puts out like 3 episodes a week,
Yeah.
but two recent episodes really stood out to me. I think within the past week. One was an entire episode basically where he was interviewing Maury Povich.
Oh boy. Okay. You are the father.
Yes, go watch this. It was great. He's like talking shop with Maury Povich, and Maury Povich had a bit of a career before the daytime TV talk show thing took off. He's kind of like fly. He was an anchor in a couple of different places, and I think like Roger Ailes like kind of got him into the. It's just really interesting. It's just really
Yeah.
interesting, and the casual mentions of how Maury Povich is married to Connie Chung. It's just I don't know. That was really entertaining. And the other one was with Katie Nolan. I guess she's one of the people who's on Celebrity Jeopardy.
Oh, okay. I have not caught that, but I guess so.
So I haven't actually seen the episode of Celebrity Jeopardy, but they recorded a Pablo Torre episode. I think like the day after her first episode aired, and I mean part of what's funny here is like we wondered before who would be on Celebrity Jeopardy.
Yeah, right.
Katie Nolan's not exactly a huge celebrity. I mean, I would guess you know who she is.
I know who she is, but I mean I'm
Yeah,
sort of intimate in that world, so
yeah. So, sports writer, sports TV personality. To people who
mhm.
maybe aren't familiar with Katie Nolan, but this is really cool because what you ended up with was um, the three-person panel of Katie Nolan, Pablo Torre, and Dan Lepetard talking
Okay.
about her appearance on Celebrity Jeopardy and kind of talking through it and so on and so forth. And she was on with Chris Maloney,
Oh,
like
from
Detective State.
SVU.
Yeah, from
Oh.
Detective Stabler from SVU. And they do things like pause and examine his facial expressions, like he's mad because Katie Nolan wiped the table with
Oh,
these
okay. Okay.
with the other contestants. She basically owned Celebrity Jeopardy. So I don't know. I thought that was really cool and just kind of look behind the scenes of her experience on Celebrity Jeopardy.
Yeah.
And that was really entertaining. And then who knows how far she goes because she wasn't allowed to talk about that.
Yeah, that's true. I guess yeah, you can't even you can't even under the rules, I guess, reference the oh no, she can't do it because that hasn't aired yet, I
It
guess.
hasn't aired yet. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So like they could talk about the her first episode where she won,
Yeah.
but then the way this works is a tournament structure. She advances to the semifinals, and if she wins again, she couldn't talk couldn't give anything away about what happens next. So I don't know.
Yeah.
For all I know, she won the whole thing, but maybe not. But anyway, those are entertaining, and just in general, I think I'm enjoying what Pablo Torre is up to on that show. So I do recommend it to people. Um,
That
it's
sounds
not
good. And
clearly it's
they're
not always about sports. It's often
and
sports adjacent. But
and how long usually are the episodes or each one of his streams, I guess.
they're usually the YouTube videos are usually like 50 minutes.
Okay.
But then they'll do a thing where it actually ends several minutes before that, and then they'll start showing clips from a previous show.
Okay.
Which I don't know if you know. So like somewhere around 45 minutes.
Gotcha. Okay.
You
All right. I'm gonna check more of them out now.
Definitely. Maury Povich. Particularly, man.
I'm gonna start with that one.
Absolutely. Because particularly come up in the 90s, like I know you did. Maury Povich, daytime television, and just his experience of
I mean, he
uh,
talk about a guy who found his niche. You want to go on national TV and find your paternity test. That's where you go.
yeah, well, but the biggest thing that stood out for me without spoiling the Pablo Torre show, but they talked about how and I think the kicking off point was someone on social media. No, it was a stand-up comedian mentioning this. Maury Povich always got people's names right.
Oh, okay.
And it was like their kicking off point was a stand-up comedian making a joke about that, you know? But then they bring it back, and Pablo Torre and Maury Povich are talking about it. Maury Povich is like, yeah, that's the minimum respect that you owe to a person, is to be sure that you pronounce their name right. And there was an example of like some baby who had a 2 in his name, like it was like wild stuff. But Maury was just like, no, that's, if I would ask my producers, and if we weren't sure, we'd go find out. I would always be sure to always pronounce whatever name it was correctly.
Interesting.
So
No,
it's like,
that's fascinating.
props to Maury Povich. I guess that's part of what is at play here,
Yeah.
Anyway, um, okay, so we're ready to get to Twin Peaks.
I am as ready as I think I can be at this point. Let's dive into it.
All right, I'll get the bottles lined up and the basket of rocks. And all right, so on the other side, we're gonna dig into Twin Peaks season 1, episode 3, also known as episode 2 originally.
Oh, here he
Also
goes
known.
again. Here he goes again.
I wish I could get over this, but the problem is I wanted to say, oh, episode 2. And like, again, I know which one it is. Or Zen or the Skill to Catch a Killer. So as per usual, we'll take about a 10-second break. We'll throw some music in here. And on the other side, I would say spoilers are on the table through this episode. And that's as far as Ryan's seen, right? And I'm gonna do my best to not bring in spoilers for things after that. So
There we go. Let's get it going.
there we go. Okay. So on the other side, again, spoilers for the first 3 episodes of Twin Peaks. And we'll see you in about 10 seconds. Okay, welcome back. So as promised, we're talking about Twin Peaks, right? Again, this is the 3rd episode of the first season. So you have the pilot, and then episode 1, and then this is episode 2, or this is season 1, episode 3. If you want to just, give into the forces of the world. Brief synopsis of events. So I don't know. I mean, I imagine people listening to this might be Twin Peaks fans and know everything already, or potentially not. Ryan has not watched Twin Peaks before. He's watched these first 3 episodes. So again, I'm not going to spoil. I'm not going to tell. We're not going to get into who killed Laura Palmer. We'll get into the question, but not the answer. Okay.
We do have a question.
But at the same time, I have extensive background here, and I don't know, so some of the things I'm going to point out, Ryan, maybe you don't understand why I'm going to point them out. We don't necessarily have to go into it. Okay. So brief synopsis, remind you of what happens in this episode. We get the introduction of Jerry Horn, who comes in while the Horn family is eating dinner. He's returned from Paris with these sandwiches that are out of this world. I always love this scene. And he and Ben ultimately head to One-Eyed Jack's, we're also introducing One-Eyed Jack's in this episode. Brothel. We don't see the casino part, but the casino is mentioned. James and Donna. James has been over to dinner. They sit and talk, and James insists they shouldn't feel bad about how they're falling in love because it's the truth and would have happened anyway. And we're getting going on the James and Donna. We're like, oh, when Laura died. Cooper informs everyone that he had a dream and learned this deductive method from this dream about Tibet. So he throws rocks at bottles related to people whose names start with the letter J. Mike and Bobby meet Leo in the woods. There's someone there. Who is that? Leo says, don't worry about it. Go out for a pass. He's threatening them. They owe him money. Bobby promises to protect Shelley. Leo's given her a beating. We get Audrey dancing in the double R on the jukebox. This is sort of a famous scene, Ryan. I don't know. Pete helps Josie find the 2 ledgers that Catherine's been keeping for the Packard sawmill. The inimitable Albert Rosenfield arrives in Twin Peaks. I put in my notes that he and Harry hit it off immediately, which is that's ironic. Ed tracks Grease into the house, and Nadine invents her silent drape runners. We towards the end of the episode, Leland is dancing with Laura's picture while Sarah Palmer is screaming about what is going on in this house. He's dancing to Pennsylvania 6500 in this scene. And he breaks down crying and all of that. And then this episode ends with Cooper's dream sequence. We've got Mike in there. We've got Bob. He ends up in the Red Room. It's the first time we see the Red Room in Twin Peaks. Michael J. Anderson in the credits as the man from another place. And then a young woman who, quote, looks exactly like Laura Palmer. And as the episode ends, she whispers in Cooper's ear, noting also this is an aged Cooper. Kyle MacLachlan's got aged makeup on. This is of some significance. Cooper wakes up in the middle of the night. He calls up Harry and says, I know who killed Laura Palmer. No, it can wait till morning. Roll credits as he snaps his fingers. And that's the end of the episode. Directed by David Lynch, this episode is.
Okay, so I saw this episode less than 24 hours ago, reviewed most of it a second time. I heard you saying words just then, putting words together. I still need to grasp everything that happened in this episode, right? Because I think I have a sense of what's going on here. I have a sense of where we left things. But man, this was a tough place to leave off and say you can't go forward. Because
well, I tell you what. So I'm curious for your thoughts about Twin Peaks in general and your reaction to this episode. And part of why I chose this episode is that I have this feeling that this is kind of where, I don't know, rubber meets the road in a certain way. I would expect most people could start watching Twin Peaks with the pilot and they'll like it to various degrees. Like, it's good, it's well done. How taken are you by our quirky special agent Dale Cooper? Again, like, it might vary a bit. But then you get to this episode, and particularly at the end of this episode, I think that this is an inflection point. Like, this is the point where potentially someone might react by, I don't know, being really sucked in, or I'm sure there are people in the world at this point who are like, what? And just never watch the show again. Or you could be in between. So I'm curious about your general reaction on that front.
So when I was in college, I thought I was going to major in accounting. This has a point, I promise. Okay. And the first year went great. And I got in the second semester of my sophomore year, and the professor of the class said, "This is the class that will help you determine whether or not you actually want to do this or not. How you feel and do in this class will determine whether or not you keep going or you say, I'm moving on to something else. This is not for me." That is what this episode said to me, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
What you just said is exactly right. It's like, okay, the pilot is like this sort of mini feature that introduces you to this weird world and this interesting story about this murder. And then as you get towards the middle and end of this episode, it was, okay, I'm either in or out at this point. I'm going to stay in. Because I'm invested in this for a number of reasons. You love this show. My wife loves this show. Many people I know love this show. So I feel like I'm prepared for the weirdness and the obscurity that's coming with it in some ways. But yeah, this was a tough one to finish it last night and say, okay, pause, start preparing to talk about it and not keep going, because man. And I presume I have heard, over the years about this. I presume this is the Red Room that's been, that's widely known. I've heard about that place before. What that is, what it means, who these people are, why there was a lookalike and someone in there sort of talking in this obscure language. I have no idea, but I will say it did hook me and I'm ready to go.
Awesome. So I'll tell you this. First of all, Red Room is a term applied to the show. It's not a term in the show. Why do we call it the Red Room? I don't know. It's a red room, right? Like, it's got a chevron floor. This is infamous. And it's always so striking to me every time I remember that this aired on network TV. This was on ABC.
I'm surprised people stuck with it, frankly. I mean, yeah, this is this
Yeah,
to think that this was on a not just cable TV, on network for basic channel TV
yeah,
35
and
years ago.
right, 1990. Um, and yeah, that was also there's a bit making fun of it on The Simpsons where Homer's watching the Red Room scene. So that does enter into the cultural kind of consciousness in a way where I'm not surprised. Do you know, maybe you don't know this, how they filmed that?
I have no idea. No.
They filmed it backwards. So you know how they talk weird?
Yes.
Okay, here's why they talk weird, or here's how they talk weird. The actors, not Kyle MacLachlan, obviously, because he just speaks normal, right? Um, but Michael J. Anderson and Cheryl Lee actually spoke their lines backwards. So apparently, Michael J. Anderson played with this and knew how to do this from the time he was a kid or whatever, and tutored other people a bit in terms of the skill of pronunciating the words actually backwards. And so then they reversed the tape.
Okay. So it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be similar to what you're supposed to be saying.
Yeah, so you get this weirdly off speaking style, and then that's how they did this here. Yeah, the first time we see them, in my mind, iconic, where we're from, the birds sing a pretty song, and there's always music in the air. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, let me say something about the music. So the music is something that has been zeitgeisty, I guess, for a long time. And I
Yeah, the
finally got
show as a
that
whole.
realization.
Yeah,
Oh, that's where this song is from.
yeah. The music provided by Angela Badalamenti. Right. Even the speaking of the music, I guess it's not really in this episode. We don't go to the Roadhouse in this episode, but we do in the prior episodes. The Roadhouse, the house band, Julie
Yes.
Cruz. How'd that land for you?
Oh, I thought that pretty fascinating. I mean, I love shows where the music is sort of character within the show, right? And this is certainly rising up the list of one of those.
Yeah, I don't know. It just always amuses me, and I wonder, if youth are encountering this now, do they realize that how weird this is? Like go back to 1990. This would have been weird that this was
Yes.
what the band sounded like in the Roadhouse.
That they're just sitting there, like there's some college kid playing acoustic guitar or singing at a coffee shop. I mean, they're just taking all that in.
Yeah, that's great. Throughout the original series, at least, it's always Julie Cruz in the Roadhouse for what it's worth. Like this is the house band. But I believe Angela Badalamenti was involved in the composition of a lot of that music, even
Okay.
if not all of it. And yeah, and Audrey's dance. That again, I think this episode is where you start to get a lot of this weirdness, um, and it's not all dark weird. Some of it's more quirky weird, like Nadine's silent drape runners.
I mean,
We're gonna be so rich, completely silent. Come on,
your grease that dripped on my pieces is gonna make us rich.
my cotton balls. Yeah. Did you notice? You probably did not notice this because I'm not positive that I noticed it before. But as I was watching back, I took a screenshot of this. As Ed comes into the house, not when he's got the grease, I think it's later.
Yeah.
He's there's shelves, and Nadine has little figurines on the shelves, like those little precious moments figurines kind of thing. One of them has an eye patch.
No way, really?
Yeah, it's just this like little tiny details. So one of them give one of them an eye patch.
Oh my gosh. This is already screaming to me as a show where you're gonna watch it a first time and watch a second time to try to see what connected and what you missed, and then watch a third time to try to pick up on all these kinds of details that are probably strewn throughout it.
Yeah, it's really rich like that. It really is. I mean, it's just I don't know. So I'm glad you're enjoying it so far. What else should we talk about here? I guess looking at your notes, right?
Okay.
Okay.
So who in the hell is Diane? Who is he talking to? When Agent Cooper makes his notes, this is not a real person, right? This is like
I'm so amused by you asking this question. It's
this,
such a
this is his AI, right? That he's talking to.
is that your theory?
I have no idea. I
Well, it's
don't think
not
it's a real
AI.
person. Yeah, through 3 episodes, I don't think it's a real person, but I'm prepared to be wrong about that.
So through 3 episodes, you do not think Diane's a real person.
Correct.
You think
That's
he
my
just
theory right
like
now.
you think he just calls his tape recorder Diane,
Yes, yeah,
basically.
that's
Okay.
his personal journal. Journal. The name's
Yeah,
Diane.
yeah, it could be. It's yeah, and again, I promise like no further spoilers, but this is something of a running thing. I mean, how do you feel about Cooper? I guess I mean, that's that is one of the immediate elements that is used to characterize him, right? He's
Yeah,
driving into town. He starts talking to Diane on the tape recorder. I don't know thoughts about her,
yeah.
especially.
So I did. I found it to be something that I noticed. I would say it's a stark difference. Something I noticed that the quirkiness is really ramped up in episodes 2 and 3 compared to episode 1. He is very odd and quirky in 1, but it's elevated to a whole nother level, not just with the tape recorder, but with the methods and with the stuff with food and with the Tibetan investigative technique. So it's really ramped up. I mean, I think that if you just had this straight-laced character trying to fit within this world of all these oddballs, it'd be quite weird. But I think he fits better episodes 2 and 3 than I found he did in episode 1.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. I mean, always loved Dale Cooper, and it's just part of it. I think is he's so kind of into it. And that's another thing we talk about the music, but also the setting for the show. I think is really important because we're here in the Pacific Northwest, and
Yeah.
indeed it is beautiful, right? The establishing shots of the waterfall outside the Great Northern, the shots of the woods, filmed in Snoqualmie, Washington, by the way, for nowhere.
Oh, okay. I meant to look into where that was, but yeah.
People go there, have the Twin Peaks festivals there and all of that. Twin Peaks is not a real place.
Okay.
It only exists in our hearts.
Only in our hearts and
minds.
our weird minds, yeah.
Yeah. But on the eastern side of Washington state, and he's fat. He wants to know what the trees are, and I think that there's a certain through line there. He's really taken in by the town, also.
Yes.
The Tibetan method. I mean, I love his interplay with Harry Truman. First of all, the fact that the sheriff's name is Harry S. Truman,
Truman.
that has to be easy to remember. But he says he gathers them all around and starts talking about Tibet first, I think, right? And then he's like, "Oh, they had a dream, and we woke from the dream with this deductive method." And I'm sorry to go logic professor on you. This is not deduction. It may be an inductive method, I guess. Whatever kind of woo-woo stuff's going on here. But I mean, I guess part of what I always enjoyed is coming from Dale Cooper. I personally am also kind of like, all right, let's do it. Whatever.
So one of my takeaways after seeing that scene and then the end of the episode is I'm another prediction is I'm going to guess that dreams and dream state and what's dream versus what's reality must play a major role throughout this show. I mean, this is 2 huge references to it, and integral pieces of what's happening in the investigation revolve around this idea of dream sequences. So I'm just predicting that must be a major part of this show.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair to say,
Okay.
for sure. And you also mentioned, or I didn't mention in my synopsis, you get the vision from Sarah Palmer at the very end of the episode, right?
Yes.
And that's how it closes with.
And I think it was who's the Sarah's mother or Laura's mother. Yeah, Sarah, who's seeing what she thinks might be the killer or someone in the home that she's dealing with this grief. We see both of them, I guess, dealing with that grief in this episode.
Yeah. I remember exactly what's here and what isn't.
Yeah, I mean, so this one we saw the mother Sarah with visions of someone in their home. visions of Laura walking around upstairs, and then the father dancing with the picture and just breaking down and that whole fiasco.
Yeah. She has a vision of Bob here, I think.
Say again?
She has a vision of Bob here, I think.
Yeah, so Bob's sort of the long-haired guy. She
Yeah.
sees him like behind the couch or something. Yeah, I think she sees
Yeah,
that.
it's behind the but yeah. There's another interesting anecdote that apparently Frank Silva, who plays Bob, was like a set dresser or something, and he was just accidentally in a shot at first in the pilot, and David Lynch liked it, and he became this huge part of the show.
So he's like the Game of Thrones coffee mug that shouldn't have been there.
Yeah, but that wasn't a happy accident. See, like
Yeah.
What feeds in, David Lynch likes happy accidents,
Right,
because
right.
they like that wasn't intended, but we're going to use it, right? Whereas, yeah, I mean the Game of Thrones Starbucks mug was just a mistake,
Yeah, yeah.
If from that point they would said, oh, because this is actually a virtual reality world that people from the 21st century are coming to or something.
Yeah.
But of course they weren't going to do that. All right. So of course the guiding question of Twin Peaks, particularly here at the beginning, is who killed Laura Palmer?
Yeah.
So you're just a couple of episodes in. I'm immensely curious, Ryan. Who are you thinking
Yeah.
killed Laura Palmer? Who's at the top of your list?
So I've got I don't know, a final four of people that at least have been hinted at. We've seen little evidence to point one direction. I guess my least conviction would be that this Bob character that's just seen in the vision. I don't know much about him yet, or who he is, or what the connection is to that character. But we've seen, this sense of was in the house, or the mother Sarah thinks he was in the house. So that's one. We have Leo, I guess, who is the abusive husband, truck driver, who told his wife to wash the clothes, and she finds a bloody shirt. He's clearly got some nefarious things going on with Bobby and another, I forget the other kid's name.
Mike.
Yeah.
Here, two things at once, actually. One, you don't see many TV shows do this, but people with the same name.
Yeah.
It's all over the place in the show. It's all over the place in the show. So you've got Mike and Bobby, right? And then in Cooper's dream, the one-armed man says his name is Mike, and the other guy's name is Bob. But that's different, right?
So I showed you. I had to find, something I had to do with a show, Dark. It's on Netflix. Anyone's ever seen that? I had to find, and I've been referencing this family tree type diagram of all the characters, how they're connected, and what their stories are. So yeah, it's through 3 episodes. It's quite a large cast, a lot to keep up with. I'm sure there'll be more clarity, but there's a lot of interconnected relationships here that have been complicated to track so far.
Right. Yeah. And I didn't even think to mention the doublings of the names. Like, I think there's potential significance to the doublings of the name, but not in a straightforward way.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Of course, there's a question of Bob's reality, Mike's reality. Not Mike and Bobby. Mike and Bobby are real. They're high school kids. But
Mike and Bobby are real.
Dream characters. What I really meant to interject to say about Leo was the bottle broke.
Oh, yes.
So, like, obviously, this is a lead, right?
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, so we're getting these clues. We're getting leads from various. And speaking of leads, I think his name is Dr. Jacoby, who we see at the end of episode 2. Clearly, he's been seeing Laura as his shrink. He's dug up the other half of this heart locket, and he's listening to tapes of her speaking about things that are going on in her life. So, I mean, this guy's clearly on the radar as a suspect right now. And I mean, there's certainly a screw loose there. I mean, we see it from the very moment, I think, when we meet him in the hospital and he's tracking down Cooper and Truman. But yeah, this guy is squarely on my radar, as well as another person I don't know anything about, the one-armed man that Cooper keeps referencing, and that we saw, I think, in the mirror of the hospital. But yeah, a lot of sort of unknowns in terms of the characters at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that is interesting. That is worth noting, because he has shown up in real life in the hospital, right? Whereas Bob has only been in Cooper's dream and the vision, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, let's be clear. My real prediction is we never find out. who killed Laura Palmer. I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about the ending of this. I don't know anything about the prequel movie. I don't know anything about the series that was released a few years ago. But that's just my prediction that someday in the near future, I'm going to find out if I'm right or not.
I could respond to that. I don't know if it's quite a spoiler.
Don't respond to that. Don't respond.
Okay. Well, no spoiler, no non spoilers, whatever. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I think that that's probably fair that these opening episodes do kind of sound. I mean, like Leo is a bad man.
Yes.
Leo is not a good person. You smoke one kind of cigarettes from now on, Shelley.
Exactly.
Put soap in his socks. Like, this is
all
gonna hurt you.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not a good guy. And Jacoby's weird. I love how when Jacoby puts on the tape of Laura Palmer, you can hear it, and then he puts his headphones fully on and you can't hear it anymore.
And you can't hear it.
Like right as it's getting good.
Yeah.
A number of small things like that. I don't think I mentioned one of the things that's always stood out to me though, hitting some of these smaller notes, is that I feel like Twin Peaks is one of the only TV shows I can think of where people actually eat food.
Interesting. It's funny you say that in relation to another show I'm watching, Loki. There was this whole thing about this scene where the two stars having a piece of pie together, and it was clear that Tom Hiddleston like wants no part of anything that's in front of him. He's just like licking his spoon the whole time.
Yeah, I mean it's often the case. You'll be like watching something, and they'll sit down to dinner. No one actually really eats, But here you've got, and they lean into it too, right? You've got Ben eating that sandwich. Oh, Sherry, you know what this reminds us of, and Cooper with his pie. Which poor Kyle MacLachlan, I guess, does not really like cherry pie.
I didn't know that. That's funny.
But you have that, and then I think also in this episode, this will happen a few times, but I think it's in this episode where Dale really has to urinate.
Yeah.
And that happens a few. And I don't know. I always think that there's something about this that feels, as weird as the show is, it also makes it feel sort of grounded insofar as people are actually eating. People actually do things like, hang on, I really gotta pee,
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
on the other hand, like you watch 24 is like,
that's exactly what I was thinking of.
He never goes to the bathroom, he never eats. Like if the show, if 24 were realistic, and before it goes to commercial, it'd be like, hang on, I gotta go to the bathroom, or
I need a vending machine now.
Yeah, eating some chips. Or no, he never eats, it's like goes 24 hours, just no sustenance,
exactly
no bathroom.
What I was thinking of.
Yeah, so it's a real contrast, I think. And what do you think about the style of the show? Well, one of my notes was about
so
about
I was thinking about this in terms of, we think about shows, particularly at the turn of this century. Think about Sopranos, think about Lost, sort of this dawn of prestige TV. The style and themes and mysterious elements of this show. I mean, clearly it was before all of this stuff. I mean, this is a real revolutionary show as far as I can tell. I mean, I think I knew that just sort of intrinsically, but now seeing that, as you were commenting, this is so far ahead of its time and so far out of the box compared to what other things were happening right now. I just find it fascinating that it sort of has hit so many notes over the years, still is so wildly popular. And I mean, it's just right in line with, something you'd find on AMC today or something,
Yeah. Of course, it becomes immensely popular.
Yes.
In this first season. The world is sucked in by this question of who killed Laura Palmer. The cast is on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
In between season 1 and season 2, it's this like worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah.
Canceled after season 2.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, again, don't want to go into certain things too much here. I don't want to spoil anything for you.
But you know what I was thinking about with this show? Did you ever listen to the original Serial podcast? The Adnan Syed, Baltimore, Diddy.
I never got around to it. I remember when everyone was listening to it.
See, that's sort of thought of as like the real emergence of these true crime podcasts. And what's interesting about it is there have been countless podcasts around the same theme and same similar stories, but nothing was ever able to quite match the uniqueness, originality, sort of the first sort of things that just hit you in the face with these types of podcasts. You know, when I think about this show in a similar way, that probably so many knockoffs, so many things that try to do it, haven't done it as well or haven't been as successful, because, you know, just something about being the first one to do something like this. It's just very, very unique. If I think about, you know, when I was watching as a 12-year-old when this came out.
Yeah, and I mean, also, I was going to lump in something about Invitation to Love, which you only get a little bit of that so far. The TV show within the TV show, like Shelley
Yeah.
is watching the soap opera called Invitation to Love, which is a fake soap opera within the soap opera of Twin Peaks. Like, as part of the point I want to hit is that there is a real level in which Twin Peaks is a soap opera, and it would be wrong to push back too much against that. It is a soap opera, and it's a mystery, and it's a drama, and it's a comedy. And it's kind of blending all of these things together, you know. And yeah, I mean, maybe that feeds in a little bit to what you were saying about all of the relationships and how there's mysteries about that too. I realize or remember, you know, that here you are just a couple episodes in. What exactly is the relationship between Catherine and Ben and Josie and Pete, you know? And then on the other hand, the backstory here with Mike and Bobby and Leo, and Bobby was Laura Palmer's boyfriend, but he's been having an affair with Shelley Johnson. You know, all of this kind of
and of course this was a good episode that introduces just sort of the first little nuggets of some of these trysts and dalliances and secret things happening that you know, add whole other layers to who done it, what's going to happen, what are we, you know, getting ourselves into. So I mean, this was a good episode to introduce all of that.
Yeah, well, it's like everyone is involved in some secret illicit romance. You know, and I was going to mention Ed and Norma. You know, here's Ed married to Nadine, who's obsessed with her silent drape runners, but he's really in love with Norma. We've learned in a previous episode already, Norma has a husband who's in prison named Hank. You know, it's just like there's so much. And so, yeah, I mean, if you weren't keeping track of all this, could hardly blame you. Right.
That's why I've got my chart here ready to keep watching in the future.
Yeah, and that's kind of funny now too, I realize. And then in this episode, maybe you're starting to get a handle on it. And then this episode they go, here's more characters, right? Because Jerry Horn shows up and Albert shows up towards the end. How did Albert land for you? I presume that you recognize the actor, Miguel Ferrer.
Okay, hold on. Let me reference my chart, make sure I'm remembering who Albert is. Remind me who Albert is in the show.
He's the forensics guy.
Oh, yes. What have I seen him on before? He's been on plenty of stuff in the 90s.
Tons of stuff. Okay,
so yeah.
The first thing that comes to mind for me for some reason is the movie RoboCop.
Oh, but yes.
He's in tons of stuff.
He's in RoboCop. Yes. So his interaction with Lucy, I just thought was classic, calling her Curly and all this stuff. And Cooper saying he lacks the social niceties. Yeah, that was an interesting way to describe him.
Yep. And I love how then Albert and, you know, Albert's making fun of this, you know, 2-horse town or whatever. And then Harry says, I hear you're real good at your job. And that's good because otherwise I'd knock your teeth up, you know, 2 blocks from here or whatever. And Cooper just looks at him and gives him a thumbs up, smiles.
Just really good stuff. I mean, I'll tell you, I've been needing a show like this to stay interested in and binge, and I am very glad that I'm starting it, frankly.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. We'll have to check in down the line and on the pod here and see, you know, how far has Ryan gotten in Twin Peaks and does he still like it and all that kind of stuff. I guess that about does it for this one. Yeah. So where are we going next? We decided where we're going next.
So we're going to sequence, I think, the next two in a very specific order for reasons we'll talk about next week. But we're going to do a very modern episode next. One of my entries. We're going to do episode 3 of The Last of Us, show that just aired this year. I started back in January. This episode is called Long, Long Time, and got a lot of acclaim when it aired back in the winter. And you've not seen Last of Us.
I haven't. So should I watch the first 2 episodes before I watch episode 3, or?
I think it would. This falls into that category. You and I had this discussion a long time ago about, does this qualify as what you might consider a bottle episode or a standalone episode? You would not be lost if you watched only this episode, but I think to add the context of why they did this episode this way, it might be helpful for you to watch the first 2.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I need to watch the first 2 for it to land right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'll try to do that here. Looking forward to it. I mean, The Last of Us is one of those shows that I just didn't manage to watch on schedule, and I just didn't find time for it.
Yeah,
I have nothing against it. So
it is. Well, I mean, clearly I've put it in my top 4. I wrote on this show for the site. We'll talk more about this next week. But the night that I wrote about it, the next day, I think I wrote that I had put this in my pantheon of TV episodes. That quickly, it had that kind of impact on me, and still here we are, whatever, 10 months later, still feel the same.
Well, indeed. Well, we're going to test that.
Yeah.
I won't say what it is now because we've been holding it as a secret. But if people really want to look into it, after we do The Last of Us next week, I'm going to choose the one that Ryan kicked off his Mount Rushmore.
That's right.
To put it on, which is in his article that he wrote. So again, if you want to go dig up his article on this Last of Us episode, it's right in there where he says, but anyway, looking forward to it. So we'll leave it there.
Should be great. Should be great. Yeah, watch the first 3 episodes of Last of Us. If you want to dig in with us, we will go through just those 3 next week, focusing specifically on that third episode.
Which Nick Offerman is in this episode, right?
That's right.
I'm a big fan of Nick Offerman. It's you got me a little bit already.
Yeah.
Ron Swanson. Okay.
And so, and you'll understand why I think you should watch the first 2 when you finish this episode and see his role in this one and for how it relates to the others. So that's all I'll say. We'll leave the rest for next week.
All right. Yeah. So again, next week we'll talk about The Last of Us, episode 3, Long, Long Time. As always, thanks for listening. Check out our website, tvobsessive.com. Of course, please like and subscribe and leave rave reviews for the podcast wherever you may listen to it. Consider popping over to our YouTube channel and subscribing there. You just get the videos, not much to look at. Maybe I need to do more of the video to get people going on the YouTube channel. The video just gives audio bars.
I presume they could we could do videos of us, but that doesn't seem very entertaining to me.
Yeah, I don't know that I want to do that. We could, but we'd probably be more likely to get people watching on YouTube if it were just even video of us. But I don't know. I'd have to put my face on and all of that kind of thing. Anyhow, follow us on social media. Follow the site. You'll be able to find us as TV Obsessive. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Cameron CC. Ryan is at Cable Box Store, and I think that's about it.
Yeah, this was really good. I'm glad you picked this one. Appreciate the conversation. I'm gonna dive more into it and let's revisit it sometime soon.
Yeah, so see, now you can go, and here's this episode ends. It can wait till morning. So I'm sure you're on the edge of your seat to find out who killed Laura Palmer right away, because that's obviously what's going to happen.
That's right. First line of the next episode is going to be.
All right, man. All right. We'll see you next week.
Thanks. See you next time.